Councilmember Bennett.
Well, I appreciate Councilwoman Collins bringing this to our attention because I think it's long overdue. But I also support the idea of a more holistic approach, and I am not willing to approve these ordinances today, but I would be very supportive of a postponement until the end of September when this can be brought in a more holistic approach. I think Councilwoman Collins has brought some things to the attention that's probably going to be very helpful to our city clerk as we move forward, and I appreciate that. But I think this is an opportunity for us to partner with the city clerk's office and the administration. I think it would be a better solution if it came through that mechanism.
Councilmember Martin.
I actually agree. I think a more comprehensive approach to this would prove to be very valuable. We're talking about around $400,000 in revenue that is currently used to manage and enforce the licensing program for the city. And if that's not collected through the licensing program, then the individual taxpayers, you and me, would end up having to pay those fees to enforce and manage the licensing program. So I don't support it under its current setup, but would be certainly willing to take another closer look when Sarah brings back her comprehensive study in late September.
Councilmember Knight.
As far as the response on the money, as Councilwoman Collins said, she's been working this for over a year, and we did address and raise this during the Budget Committee meetings last October and identified this as one of the areas of needing to address this. But since we are talking about the $400K at that time, we considered an amount that was manageable, and so far I still go along with that. As far as the holistic approach that our city clerk has talked about, you know, a lot of stuff that she's talking about I think is executive branch factors and the day-to-day operations on how do you get a license and how do you get how we reach out to our customers, how easy we make it. Those improvements are indeed executive branch. But when you come to actually, are we going to collect fees for a business, that's a policy decision. And that's a policy decision that rests with the legislative branch. And so I think that just separating that out does make a lot of sense, to just separate that out. And even though it's 4 ordinances and a lot of words, we are in essence voting on a policy of do we want to collect fees for small businesses or business as all, or do we want to be business friendly? And early last year, when I was sitting in the back of the room debating whether I wanted to run for council, and then when I was running for council, somewhere in there, the council at that time was sitting here and had a discussion of 4 or 5 years ago, we were paying businesses to collect the sales tax for us. And now we're charging them to collect for a business sales tax license. So they are, I don't care how you put it, what you call it, the bottom line is, you know, businesses have to pay us to collect our sales taxes. And that's wrong, and that's why I will be supporting Councilwoman Collins's 4 ordinances here to set a policy that the city being business friendly, we should not be charging business sales or business licenses.
Councilmember Collins.
And I just had one more comment on the revenue coming to the city. This council has spent over $25 million in supplemental funding. So right now we've received $200,000 in revenue, so it's projected around $400,000 for the year. So $25 million in supplemental funding versus $400,000, and I think businesses would flock here. In the government regulation that's in place now, I just think it would be so positive for the community. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Gabler.
It seems like, based on what we've heard between council and staff, that there has been maybe a lack of communication and collaboration of trying to find a compromise on this. And I guess that alone makes me want to wait and see if we can find a way to work together for something that we can all agree upon. And as far as the communication piece, I guess I would like to hear from PD while they're here and any other staff that would like to comment on what they think are the issues related to this legislation. So I know you guys are here. Would you mind?
Sure, come forward. Welcome, thanks for being here today.
Good afternoon, President King, Pro Tem President Bennett, and Council. We've had some minor discussions with Sarah referenced these ordinances. We do have some concerns. We do appreciate still keeping licensing because we were under the understanding at one point we're going to get rid of licensing altogether. Licensing really gives legitimacy to a business. It really does. If you look at across the country, licensing, if you have a license, you prove that you've met the standards set forth by the city. My concern with some of the penalties that we have in here, it's a $20 fine if you don't have a license. There's really no incentive to get a license any longer if all I have to do is pay a $20 fine. And then I go back and get my license. I think we're going to have an issue with, especially our alarms program. I know that's one that Sarah brought up. With the alarms program, we have 30 to 40,000 alarms that we monitor, licenses. I don't know that there'll be an incentive for a homeowner or business owner to go get a license if, once we find out they don't have one, all they have to do is pay a $20 fine when they're found guilty of not having a license. That's one concern we have. Another concern that I believe was brought up is we're really passing these fees on to the taxpayer. I believe that paying a licensing fee is the cost of doing business in the city of Colorado Springs. That's normally passed on to the consumer. Now what we're doing is we're passing that on to the taxpayer. And the taxpayer needs to now support all the staffing throughout the city that is taking care of the licensing. We have a license, or we have an alarms clerk in the Colorado Springs Police Department that was established because years ago, and I think it was during your time, Councilmember Martin, we had issues, and we still do, with false alarms. We respond to probably 98% of our alarms are false alarms. We went to a licensing system and a management system so that we can track those alarms, and then we find somebody when we go out to 3 or more, I believe it's 3 or more alarms that are false. Licensing is a way to track, and I think license fees are really a business decision that I don't think a business will come to the Springs because we don't have a license fee, because they pass that on to the consumer. I really believe that. And as Cara said, we're really concerned. I know $400,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but it does during the budget process when you're an agency that is still trying to cut our budget to meet our needs. So $400,000 to us is a significant amount of money, even though our budget is $100,000 or $100 million a year at the PD. So, are there any questions of me?
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Snyder.
Yeah, a couple things, Helen. As I was reading all this material and trying to soak it up, what came through my mind was how Councilmember Collins votes no against almost all that comes before us. So I'm asking Councilmember Collins, why should I vote yes for these ordinances?
Councilmember Collins.
Well, I spent like a year of research on this. As far as the syntax goes, and you say, well, people, I'm still requiring them to register. It's just there isn't going to be a business license fee. But escort runners, we don't even have anybody signed up for escort runner. I mean, there's people already dodging the license fees, going out of business. It just doesn't make sense. A month ago, I sent like a generic memorandum plus all of this information, and it was especially for you, Val, because you never say you get the information ahead of time. So I received comments. I didn't receive any comments from you on what was going on with that. All of a sudden, the executive branch is fighting this, and this is just since 2 weeks ago. And it's only 200,000 now because the half of the fiscal year has gone by, so we're only going to lose 200,000, not even 400,000 in revenue. And over $25 million in supplemental funding. Does that not ring a bell with citizens? And I vote no on a lot of stuff because I believe there's too much government regulation. You look at this and how much amount of material that is. We kept writing resolution upon resolution to add fees. We penalized people because going out of business because one gentleman who sold jeans, I don't even remember his name, kept saying he was going out of business. So we penalized the rest of Colorado Springs because of one individual. You know, we're still going to be required to register. We're just not going to require the fees. And it'll probably dump a lot more revenue into Colorado Springs. Does that answer your question?
Kinda, it just, that's one thing that went through my mind. A couple more things. I certainly got to agree with the city clerk and with Deputy Chief Liskey that this ought to be part of the holistic, comprehensive approach, have the staff just go through these things once. So I would certainly go for a postponement.
And I have another comment on that in the postponement. I started this last June. It didn't become an issue until like a month ago. All of a sudden, we were going to lose all this revenue, $200,000. Why didn't we work on this over the last year? All of a sudden, we're doing a holistic approach. Look at this, 12G 14-0363. Look at all these licenses. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I would say even with the LARD committee, which Councilmember Martin has worked on, there's so many different resolutions, you can't keep on top of them. I vote no against government a lot. There is too much government regulation. Our government was founded on small business. And we seem to be getting more and more supplementing the government, and so I just disagree with it. And I think this will bring a lot more revenue into the city.
So to finish my
Councilmember Snyder.
statement, I would certainly be open to a postponement. Otherwise, I will be voting against the measure.
Okay, thank you. And so let's go to Councilmember Miller.
You know, we've had a lot of discussion about economic development, and if you look at the past history of the good money being thrown after bad on this council in this city towards economic development with completely uncertain results. We just did it on a second reading to the Business Alliance. So $200,000 in the hopes that maybe they'll bring something. We're going to partner with somebody that maybe do something without any actionable or traceable results, and we do it year after year after year, and we're going to partner with them. Well, how about we partner with businesses that already exist? We can eliminate their fees, and we can do it directly. And why put a third party in the process when we don't even know what we're getting? This immediately impacts business. And I think it is the opportunity when we say we should do it holistically, more comprehensive. Did you read all the ordinances that were eliminating fees? It sounds pretty comprehensive to me. I think that Councilmember Collins and the legal staff were pretty comprehensive when they went through to eliminate fees. And I think that's the way to do it. As far as including, I don't think this should preclude Sarah Johnson from going through her breakthrough strategy about eliminating actual licenses. Why do we need some of those licenses? We've talked about how some of them have outlived their usefulness. Why does an arcade game place have to have a license to be able to have people put coins into an arcade game? It's ridiculous. So I applaud your plan to attack those licenses. In the meantime, from our fiduciary responsibility, I think this is a small investment compared to the other investments we made at unknown results to spur economic development. This partners directly with existing businesses and potentially future businesses that may be able to eliminate some of those fees. The other thing that we keep hearing, well, we've got to have a compromise between everybody and everyone's got to agree, and we don't all have to agree. We have to, as a body, we need to go forward with what we think the majority of us think is going to move the city along. We'd like to work together with people, but when we don't agree on things fundamentally, then it's pretty hard to, by the time you come up with a muddled thing that everybody agrees with, you're really not taking any decisive action at all. So I support this measure, and I'm hoping that we'll have a majority of us that do so.
Okay, I'll respond why I'm voting the way I did when I came back here in 1977 and started Waterbed Palace. I was a small business person and was opening stores at different places, but in Colorado Springs, for some reason, the state of Colorado decided that for the privilege of being able to finance a waterbed at my store, they were going to start charging a fee, and that fee was going to be for the privilege of my business being able to finance a waterbed, or the customer coming to my business and financing a waterbed through Associates or Avco or Beneficial. And I looked at that, and we had been doing this for years and got this new fee from the state, and said to myself, why is it necessary for me to have to pay a fee to the state of Colorado for the privilege of somebody coming to my business and being able to finance a waterbed? So I took about a half hour, and after I got to 35 taxes and fees that I was paying, I said if I ever got a chance to be elected to a legislative body, that I would do everything I could to fight all these fees and taxes that are put on small businesses across the state of Colorado. So one of the first things I did when I went to the House and the legislature and also in the Senate, I voted against all fees of businesses that would be put to impede the success of a small business. And if you think that 35 fees is a legitimate amount of fees for a small business to pay, I guess that's fine. I think it's too high. I think it's onerous of the people. And so in every case that I have been able to do, I will vote against these types of fees that are required for small businesses to pay. So I will be supporting this initiative today.